additional information on the potential technical or other questions that may arise when you want, for instance, to contribute data, as was... no.
No.
The one before. I cannot recall the number, most probably it is number 10. Right, yes. Okay. So, what must have been made clear is that the data that you have, the data that we have, is a treasure for a myriad of purposes where technology can really be used to help us in everyday communication. Now, I would like to insist on this help us in everyday communication, simply to say and ease some sort of fears that may arise, fears that have to do with fears that may have to do with the probability that the translator's profession comes to an end after some years, and fears like that. So let me assure you that in the foreseeable future, the totality of the translation profession is not in danger. What we are trying to develop is tools, a suite of tools that can increase the productivity of translators and will help them to catch up and cope with the vast amounts of information that are there waiting to be translated. So, message number one, we're talking about a productivity tool that can help the translators, that is a powerful tool in the hands of the translators, with the humans always in the loop. Almost irrespective of the type of text that one wants to translate, and irrespective of the medium of communication, be it text or speech. It will be easier for text, it will be much more difficult for speech. So my dear interpreters, please don't worry. There will not be any critical issue, at least in the very, very immediate future. So this is number one. Number two, the technology as it stands today, it has become more than evident that it tries to learn from examples. What sort of information do we need when we want to translate? We need information that will help the machine transform from one language into the other. This transformation is that we call translation from one language into the other. And how do we learn these transformations? We learn these transformations out of parallel data, as Dan Tufish and Dan Christea said. And what is parallel data? Sets of parallel documents, source documents and target documents. Documents in the source language and documents in the target language. Or, just to show you that I also learned something in Romanian today, documents is in limba sursa and documents in limba destinație. Huh? Is it?
Destinație or țintă.
Or țintă, yeah, right. Okay, and I only learned these translations, the translation of these terms, without asking Dan Tufish or Dan Christea, simply by comparing all the evidence that I have gathered from the translators, from what I know, of course, in English, and from what I saw on the slides. Okay. So, transformation, for the transformation, parallel data. But translation, above all, needs to render a document in the target language, in the language in which we want to communicate. For modeling, if you want the target language, we need huge monolingual corpora, set of documents that somehow indicate what is a good, a well-formed sentence in the target language, in this case in Romanian or in English, depending on the direction selection of the pair of translation. Last but not least, and it was raised a couple of times today, when we talk about medical translation or engineering translation or legal translation, we need to abide with, comply with certain rules, let's say, terminological rules, and for these we need to know the correct terminology in the particular domain. Right, now, technically and practically, this is the journey that we will be following in ELRC. And this journey follows these 6 steps. And today we only started. So what did we do today? Today we talked about identification and selection of data. So we want to identify sources of data, places where data may exist, and from the data that exists already there, we would like to select those examples that are the most appropriate ones for our purposes. And as soon as we have identified and selected the data, we need to document them. We need to say that these are data. For instance, taking the example of parallel data, we want to be sure that we're talking about parallel data between English and Romanian, or Romanian and French. So please just indicate that this is a data set that contains Romanian as the source language and French as the target language. Information that can indicate to the user that this particular data set can be used when you train a system that will be used for legal translation. Similarly, for medical documents, etc. As soon as the data sets are documented, what we may need to do, but we may also not need to do, is to clean them and convert them to appropriate formats. I'll tell you a bit later what appropriate formats are, and in the cycle of cleaning, we may do some sort of technical cleaning, but also we may do some sort of legal cleansing, in the sense that there may be information, pieces of information in the documents, in the data sets, that should not be carried over. For instance, personal data should be taken out, okay? So there are some processes, not always deterministically correct, but there are, okay? For the very fact that we're not absolutely certain of the results, we need to validate the output of the cleaning and conversion phase. And later on, the validated data sets will be further processed. Dantofish showed what we do. Dantofish showed what we do when we get parallel documents. The first thing that we do is to align them at the level of sentence, to say that sentence 1 of document A in language 1 is equivalent, semantically equivalent to sentence 1 of document B in language 2, okay? And so on and so forth. And later on, as soon as you know the sentences, you know that this sentence goes to this sentence, you start digging into the sentences and you try to extract equivalencies at a level lower than that of the sentence, at the level of phrase, at the level of word, etc. And as soon as the whole thing is there, we describe it again with some sort of what we call metadata, information about the data. This is metadata. We describe it again and we just say that, well, you know, initially we had some sort of parallel documents. Now we have a set of aligned documents, okay, at the level of sentence, word, phrase, whatever. And we store away the processed dates. Right. Now, let's focus up to here for the time being. So identification and selection of data and basic documentation. One of the headaches when you deal with data is whether it is appropriate for you, it is correct for you in the jurisdiction that you operate to share these data. Okay? So we need to determine the legal status of the data. To keep it oversimplified and benefiting from the fact that the legal expert is not, is not here, so the criticism will not be that strict. Oversimplifying things, I would say that, I mean, at least from in my engineering mind, things can bear a very simple dichotomy. And the dichotomy here is that since we're talking about public sector data, either the data fall under the PSI directive or the data is licensed. Which means we need to know whether the data that we deal with fall fall in the realm of the public sector directive as this is transposed in the country, in Romania, in this case, or if the data is explicitly licensed with one of the open licenses. Now, just to say one thing about, one more thing about the legal issues. It may be the case that open data, the data is open by default under the PSI, but according to the law, at least this is the case in many countries, it may be that you may have to notify the data holder that you are reusing this data. In other cases, this may not be necessary. The data is open by default, and there is no need, if you want, to request permission for any further use, any reuse of the data. Talking about licenses, there are, in some cases, there are standard government open licenses. In the UK, there is such a license. While in Greece, for instance, for the public sector information, we use standard reuse licenses, and these are the famous by now and very simple to use and understand Creative Commons licenses. Very simple licensing framework. Now, for any potential question that you may have, anything that may come to mind, or anything that may make you feel uneasy about, ELRC, that is us, the brokers, the conduits in this case, ELRC can help with all the procedures. Very shortly, I'll tell you how. Right. Supposing that we have sorted out all the legal questions that may arise, hopefully not many of them, the question is, right, and what sort of data do you need? I mean, semantically, we know, okay? It has to do with public administration, etc. Right? How, in what format do you need them? Okay? And the answer is any digital textual data. We cannot be that selective at this point in time. Okay? Any digital format will do. DocX, ODT, PPT, PPTX, XLS, XLSX, whatever. HTML, XML, if they come with some sort of structural annotation, even better. TMX is our beloved format. TMX is our beloved format simply because TMX is the format that you can generate out of a translation memory tool. SDL can generate TMX, many translation memory workbenches can generate TMX. TMX or XLIF, okay? There is one thing that we are not very happy with, but if it is the only thing, what can we do? We accept it, and this thing is PDF. Okay, PDF is a difficult format to deal with, simply because there are many types of PDF files in the first place. But further on, supposing that you have a processable PDF, you will need to convert it from PDF to text, which is something that will not always work perfectly well. Moreover, if you are the holder of the data and you have the data in PDF, somewhere on the same disk, or maybe on your file storage somewhere in the cloud, there should be the source document out of which you have generated the PDF. So if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, let's say, to spare, to search in your disk drive and see what was the source file out of which I generated the PDF, please do. It would save us lots of time. But if this is a burden for you, or if it is too time-consuming, okay, no problem, PDF. Okay? Yes.
But no images in PDF.
Sorry?
No scans.
No scans of PDFs. No. We cannot do anything. I mean, we will accept it, but we will keep it for museum purposes. Right. Then this is something that I forgot to say is that, as you see here, this is something that we can do together. Okay, this is the meaning of partnership down there. Okay, this is something that we can do together. It is something that you do first, simply because you have access to your hard disks, and we do not. You know the semantics of the file names that you have used. We do not. But if there are questions, we are here. Okay, we are here to help. Right. And this is something that we will do as ELRC, and this is the meaning of this tag there, down there. We will make sure that the encoding, the character encoding is correct, so that characters are correctly represented. This was an issue that was raised a couple of times, and rightly so, absolutely rightly so. And we will discard formatting. There was discussion about formatting in the previous panel. I mean, something may be in bold or in italics. This will be of no use to us, simply because imagine that this is something that we crawled from the web. This is English and this is Greek. So the author there wanted to underline, but also make bold and italicize the fact that Greece is a place of culture, the arts and sciences, right? This is not something that is of absolute interest to us, to keep it in bold, italicized, and underlined. So what we will do is simply to remove all the formatting and keep the plain text form. Right. And then what we will also need to do, here we tag this slide as ELRC, and this task as ELRC, but we will need some help from the providers, is the following. We need to answer the question, does this data set contain personal information? If you do know that it contains personal information, ideally we would like to get the answer from you. That yes, it does, or no, it doesn't. Or it contains personal information, but this is the name of the Prime Minister or the President of the country or of the President of the Commission or whoever else. And these data, although they are names of people, they refer to entities in the world, is considered to be public. There will be cases where the data personal data of people are people that are not, data that are not considered to be public. They are considered to be personal data. There is the Personal Data Directive, in Personal Data Protection Directive in the EU and in all member states, and this has to be complied with. So what do you do? Again, technology can help with processes that are called data anonymization processes. Now, these data anonymization processes can do something really simple in the first place. And what they can do is to find and remove information like names, names of locations, potentially dates, dates of birth, things like that. The process, although it is fully automatic, does not always yield the best results as to anonymization. Let me briefly explain. I can refer to an entity by its name, but I can also refer to an entity by its properties. Okay? So if in the particular context an individual is referred to by its properties, but these properties, simply the mentioning of the properties without even the mentioning of the names, make the individual uniquely identifiable, then the anonymization process has failed. So this is something that needs to be taken into consideration. Right. And then, exactly due to that, due to the very fact that anonymization is a rather complex process, we will need to validate the results. Let me digress a bit from this and tell you the following. Coming from a country where in the past years agriculture was one of the main activities, although I have no experience of it myself, what I know, but I do have 2 lemon trees in my garden. What I do know is that whenever, together with my wife and my daughter, we go to pick up the lemons, we start with the lemons that are directly in our eyes or within reach. Okay? And then we use a ladder, which is a more tedious thing, to get the lemons from the upper leaves. This being said, there are so many things that one can do without having to deal with, for instance, data sets that contain personal information. There are so many things that one can do with directly open data. There were already examples in the previous panel from your institute, from the academy. There are so many examples, and I would suggest that we stick to these examples first. We put our focus on these examples, and then we leave the more difficult cases for later. This is what the Englishmen call go for the low-hanging fruit first, and then we see if we need to have a ladder and go and pick the lemons from the upper leaves. So, low-hanging fruit first, right? And then what we do is to fully describe the whole thing so that the people who will be using these data sets know for which particular engine to use them for training or evaluation or whatever may be necessary. Right. So, just to summarize the cooperation actions, the actions that we can do together. Identification of sources. This is something that you know much better than anyone else does. The sources maybe go there to the ministry, to that particular department, or go there to that URL, because we know that under that URL you can find translated documents. Okay? Ideally, if you know, or if the website is run by your own organization, then you also have the documents. So, I mean, it's better that you provide the documents themselves or the data sets themselves than just the URL. But again, this is still an option. Okay? And we do have tools that perform this crawling of either monolingual or multilingual parallel data. Number 2, selection of data sets, again from the public sector, mostly, okay? But if there are other sources that you may feel that can provide useful data sets in the end, yes, please go ahead and let us know. And yeah, processing indicated above can be carried out in cooperation by the ELRC and the data provider. Right. Now, we have put in place sort of, if you want, infrastructure, in quotes, to support our work, but also your work, to provide support for all the procedures and the technical issues that may pop up. So, the ELRC portal is available at www.lr-coordination.eu. So if you go to www.lr-coordination.eu, you will be presented with a page like this, where you have all information about what we're doing. So what we're doing today is the workshop in Bucharest, Romania. So this is present here under events. And next week, most probably, this is something that we will have to negotiate with Dan, but I think it will be next week, I'm pretty certain. All the presentations, all the slides will be there. Okay, so you go to the agenda of the workshop, and just beside each and every item of the agenda for which a presentation was prepared, there will be the slides for you to browse. Right. Technical and legal support help desk. If you have questions, you can send the questions by email at help@sef-at-helpdesk.org, help@sef-at-helpdesk.org, or you can reach our secretariat at this number, +49, etc. This is in Germany. It is operated by the coordinating partner of ELRC, which is DFKI, the Deutsches Forschungszentrum für Künstliche Intelligenz. This is the German Research Institute for Artificial Intelligence. Or you can call the French partner of our consortium. This is ELDA, the European Language Distribution Agency, at this number. You can also Skype us, and this is the Skype ID, or you can browse the web forum. And what do we do with the web forum? We do the following. In the web forum, we will have some sort of distillation, let's say, of all the popular questions that may arise in more than one countries, and where the answer is pertinent, most probably, to more than one country and more than one jurisdiction, if we are talking about the legal stuff. So there will be information in the forum, okay, for you to browse. You don't find something, or you don't find it immediately, send a mail, use the help desk, write your question, and you will get a reply the soonest possible. Now, one note, and this is an irony. The irony is the following. There are 26 potential input languages. Okay? Suppose that a colleague in Malta that may have a problem, he should have the right to write in Maltese, to describe his problem in Maltese. The issue is that we do not have the capacity to understand the question and provide an answer in Maltese as well. So please bear with us, at least for some time in the foreseeable future. Bear with us and send us your question in English. Right. Last but not least, likely very important, the repository for sharing LRs. Here the scenario says the following. I already have a TMX file, Romanian French, in the domain of human rights. Okay? So what can I do? I go to lr-coordination.eu, I go to resources, and I'm presented with a page. This is the page that you will get if you go to resources. And in the upper part you see the ELRC share repository. You click here at the ELRC share repository and you are presented with this screen. And in this screen you can do a couple of things. The first thing you can do is to register. Okay? So you register at elrcshare.isp.gr. This is the URL that appears as soon as you press for the ELRC share repository. And the reason that you register is because we need this process to be absolutely safe for you, for us, for everybody. We need to know who the provider is. We need, if you want someone to undertake the responsibility, that this data set is a data set that is useful, that is lawfully used, that has an owner, that there is somebody behind this data set who knows what this data set is all about. And as soon as you register, you have to activate your account with a very simple process that you will see later on. And then you can log in as many times as you wish, for as long as the repository is up and running for a couple of years, and you can contribute data. And what does contribute data mean? Provide a minimum description, and then upload the file that you have using very, very simple mechanisms. Now, what are these mechanisms? You go to, if you want to register, you will be presented with a form like this. One of the forms that you have, one of the myriad forms that you have already filled in for many things. Okay, so you just provide your first name, your last name, your email, your country, your organization, and you also provide your desired account name, something that you know and nobody else, and your password. Okay. We could have generated, if you want, accounts for each and every participant, but this is not something that, I mean, assigning desired account names or passwords is not something that would be absolutely safe if somebody else does for you. So what we would beg you to do is, in case you have data to contribute, just take this 1 minute. It is 1 minute, okay? To fill in this information. It is 1 minute as long as you are not very indecisive about your desired account name, okay, or your password. For the rest, I mean, it is very easy. Right. And then your request for registration is acknowledged, and we send you an activation email to the address that we indicate. You check your email and you click the activation link. Right, and you have the right to do to upload and contribute resources on the repository. Now, what do we ask for? You have a data set. Excellent. You know what it is. Excellent. But we need to identify it. Let's provide a name so that we know how to refer to this particular data set. Name it one. Name it Legal Corpus Romanian French. Name it after whatever, I don't know, your name, my name. But I mean something that uniquely identifies the particular data set so that in any future communication with you, we know what to refer to, okay? We are writing to you about data set what? Data set 1, okay? And then just a short description, 1 sentence. This is a parallel set of documents, French, Romanian, in the domain of law, something like that. And then the languages, if you have 2 languages, for instance here in this particular example we have English-French, okay, with you can click on 2 languages. If it is just one monolingual corpus, okay, you just say Romanian or English or whatever. And then you just press browse, okay, there is a button that says browse, and you are presented with a dialog where you can select from your directory structure in your hard disk the particular place where the data set that you want to upload resides. Okay, it is as simple as that. And then later on we may send you an email, we may ask you if there is additional information that you would like to share with us, things like that. Okay, either us from ELRC or your national anchor point. You will also be able, in the very immediate future, to browse the catalog of all the resources from all the countries. So this will be an open repository. And you will also be able to download those data sets that are under public sector, shared under the Public Sector Information Directive or under an open license like the Creative Commons licenses. So you will also have the opportunity, if you want, to have a panorama of what exists and what other people have shared. But this is not something that is available at the beginning, simply because the thing is now being populated. So no use to have search and browse when the thing is now only being populated. Right. If you want to upload a second data set, okay, then you just repeat the information. You just repeat the same process for as many data sets you want to contribute as possible. Excellent. Right. Let me very, very briefly, for the benefit of time, tell you the following. If there is one thing that is certain, is that while translating or even while drafting monolingual documents, we generate very, very useful information, not only for communication purposes, for communicating the content that we want, but also for, if you want, secondary purposes, like the development of technology. So the idea here, and you will have these slides available for download from the ELRC-Coordination.eu website, is just doing richness that your hard disks contain, richness in terms of of data that are very, very useful for a myriad of purposes, Here we're focusing on translation, okay, just on translation. But just imagine that in this process, you will have all these, in this process, there is, in the authoring, but also the translation process, you initiate a cycle that is symmetric to what we call, and you can perfectly understand, the language resource life cycle, okay? So when you start authoring a document, the first thing that you do is to know whether your document will be a monolingual or a multilingual document, right? And this is part, if you want, of your specifications, right? Then you produce the document, you validate the document. If it is a multilingual document, you may have a translation revision stage. If it is a monolingual document, you may have, again, a check by someone else of whether the document is absolutely clear, it serves the communication purposes, that is, it has been written for, etc. And then if you want to share and distribute the document, you need to be clear, we all need to be clear about what rights of access we give to other people, to the things that we have generated, be they monolingual, be they multilingual, be they unstructured or structured terminologies or lexicon. This is something that we will have to start doing in any case, simply because we are all living in the web, and unfortunately, so far, we tend to develop or expose or exhibit some sort of what I call legal agnosticism. I mean, we're totally indifferent to what rights we give to people to use the information that we have on our website. While, without mentioning names, when we subscribe to companies, social media companies, we sign up to, and we agree to the terms of use. And if you read these terms of use very, very carefully, then you will realize that we give access to all the data that we provide on our accounts, be it tweets, posts, etc. So this is something that we will start, one way or another, we will start to be sensitive to it. So, I mean, we may keep the copyright, we may say, no, I mean, this is not content that I would like anyone to crawl and reuse, or this is content that I would be very, very happy to be crawled and be reused as long as my name appears there, or the name of my organization appears. Okay? So, all in all, here there is a cycle that somehow may guarantee that this process of generating content on the web, be it monolingual or multilingual, structured or unstructured, will remain sustainable in the years to come. And I think that this is my last slide, and this is the last slide of the last presentation, so thank you so very much.